Welcome back, Uncle Mike. Uncle Brent. That's right. Hey, you know what? I kind of feel like the San Francisco Giants fake signing Carlos Correa. But you know what we didn't do? We didn't fake sign Michael Brantley. That's right. He's coming back to Houston. The son of Houston, Michael Brantley, is back, the hitting professor. We're going to talk about this. Correa, Yuli changes agents, and some other things in Astros news. Let's go.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Astros, your daily Astros podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric the Man Huysman and Brett H-Town Wheelhouse Chancey.
We are Locked On Houston Astros, and we hope that you join us for a daily Locked On Astros podcast. My name is Eric Huysman. You can find me on Twitter at Eric Talks Stros. Find the show at Locked On Astros, your team every day. Brett, where can I find you at?
They can find me at H-Town Wheelhouse on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. They can find me at Stros411 on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Always positive. Positive my team actually signs a player when they announce it. Always Stros.
Well, happy holidays to you and your family, everybody that listens to Locked On Astros podcast. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for helping us to get to 1 million downloads this year and growing. And thank you for subscribing to us on YouTube. Thank you for giving us a like when you watch our podcast, and go and continue to make us your first listen on Apple, Odyssey, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. Check out the Locked On Astros podcast. So, yeah, we got a lot to talk about right before we're going to air the show or record the show. Michael Brantley news reported. I know it was broke a couple days ago, but this is where it was made official, and we know some of the numbers. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what the heck happened overnight with Carlos Correa. He was a Giant. Now he's a Met. And then we'll look at Yuli. Does him changing agents, does that mean he's possibly coming back to Houston? Do the Astros need him? And also we'll address the thing that's still going around. Who bats second for the Houston Astros? But I think the big thing on today is that the Astros officially signed Michael Brantley to a one-year deal. The base pay is $12 million, but it could reach $16 million if he reaches 525 plate appearances. So basically, if he reaches 400 plate appearances, he'll get 500K. If he reaches 425 plate appearances, he'll get another 500K. And then he'll get 750K each if he reaches 450, 475, 500, and 525 plate appearances. That adds up to be $4 million. Man, I wish that as teachers, we would get paid that much more just to work the extra 25 days or so to speak. But it's good to have Uncle Mike back. And I know we are going to address the should he bat second and or should he bat seventh in a little bit. But what are your thoughts on that deal?
You know, I think it's a great deal. And like you said, as teachers, maybe for every extra 25 students that we took on, we could get an extra 10K. I mean, that seems pretty reasonable, right? But, Michael Brantley, this is a signing that really Michael Brantley at 80% is better than no Michael Brantley at all. Michael Brantley at 85 or 75%. And I really don't think that's going to be the issue, because you're going to have a load management kind of terminology when it comes to Michael Brantley in left field with Yordan Alvarez. Yordan Alvarez is going to get a majority. The good thing about the shoulder injury was it was a non-throwing shoulder. So out in the outfield throwing the ball is not going to be as big of a deal. But you're not putting Brantley out there to go make a save or go get an assist in the outfield. You're putting him there because he gets on base.
Right.
And he is a professional hitter. He's a pull hitter. He can hit to the opposite side of the stadium, but the shift is going away. And I think this helps Brantley because, see, Brantley's a smart hitter anyways, and you've seen him hit through the shift before, but he's going to get more hits through the shift when those players are shifted at a maximum rate, but still not where they normally are. Because if you look at their heat maps, Eric, it is very interesting where Brantley hits the ball and where all these different guys hit the ball when they're in the box. But I think more than that, it's the intangible leadership, like you talked about, like I've mentioned, the way that in the clubhouse he told the guys turn things around. and he really has bought into the culture and really fits in. So if anyone's as much a part of this team as anybody, it's Michael Brantley, and I think he's player one when it comes to a great signing here in the offseason and at a budget price.
Yeah, I know. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, Pena needs to continue batting second. And I'm kind of one of those people. But at the same time, Michael Brantley is too good of a hitter in his career to bat all the way in seventh spot. But it does kind of lengthen your lineup if you're going to think about it like that. So, but I looked at Michael Brantley's career stats. I mean, he spent most of the time in his career with the Indians batting third or fourth. So he didn't really spend a lot of time batting second. It was just when he got to the Astros, he started batting second. But batting second in his career, he has a slash line of 294, 356, 424, 780 in 311 games. Batting seventh, it's only 56 games. I mean, what business does Michael Brantley have batting seventh? I would guess. But in his career, he's batting 267, 319, 351, 670. So his numbers are a little bit lower. I would guess that was probably earlier in his career. In 2022, we already talked about it. In 64 games, he batted second every game that he played. He had a slash line of 288, 370, 416, 785. So now, if you look at Jeremy Pena, he bats when he batted second, he batted 290 with a 315, 522, 837. When he batted seventh, 268, 313, 421, 733. So it's really up to Dusty Baker. Does he feel like at this point, after the success he saw in the playoff, does Jeremy Pena still need that lineup protection for Pena? Because if you have Pena batting seventh, you're going to have Martin Maldonado likely batting behind him. And then you're going to have then behind him McCormick. McCormick will probably be like the second leadoff hitter type guy. But I think that they'll probably. I mean, I still think Pena should bat second, but this is probably what the lineup will see. We'll probably see Altuve, Brantley, Bregman, Alvarez, Abreu, Tucker, Pena, Maldonado, and McCormick. And I know during the last show, a lot of people said, well, why don't you bat Tucker second? I think he's got too much power. He has too much ability to drive in a lot of runs to bat second.
Yeah, exactly. And it is really going to be up to the baseball savants of the world before the Astros actually give us the lineup and what Dusty Baker's going to do. And everybody's going to have their formula of why he's hitting here. We present numbers. You can go off his past performance, but really it comes down to the players in the clubhouse and Dusty Baker and how they feel, where they are going to have the greatest assault on opposing pitchers. I was talking earlier about Michael Brantley's spray chart, and I just wanted to pull it up to show everybody. It's a heat map from Baseball Savant. So this is a great time to think about. If you're listening to this podcast, go to YouTube, subscribe, and check out this. But if you look at defensive positioning when Michael Brantley is up to bat, I would say like 80 or 90% of the positions, even the shortstop or third baseman is right behind second base. And you'll see that that area is going to open up big time when this shift ends. And so I think you have to make the case for Brantley being a contact hitter, not a power hitter right now. So
Right.
my question is this. If you do put Brantley down at the bottom of the lineup, does he have more opportunity to have people on base and to drive people in versus Jeremy Pena being more of a slugger? So I think with the runners in scoring position, if Brantley's further down in the lineup, he has more opportunity to drive in runs. To me, Pena is more of a slugger, so he's the guy that can mash the ball, get to second base, but he's not going to necessarily he's not going to drive in the runs, I think, potentially as much as Brantley is. But listen to this. Whether you have Pena second or seventh, whether you have Brantley second or seventh, you have not Brian Abreu, you have Jose Abreu in there 311 with runners in scoring position,
Right.
career. What this lineup presents is real problems for the pitching. Also, is the left, right type of order still something that Dusty Baker's going to stick with? Because if you fashion this lineup in certain ways, you can literally have three left-handers back to back to back. And I know that would probably make Dusty like a little uncomfortable, a little uneasy there, sitting at the
Right.
bench watching this lineup. Either way, Eric, the Astros are going to put the best lineup forward. They're going to put them in the best position. And you may see some switching around. You may see Pena for one series or Pena versus a right-hander going second. Then if he goes against a left-hander, bat him seventh. They may move in the lineup according to what the matchup is. And you may see Dusty use more lineup variants than he's ever used in his career.
Yeah, but Dusty Baker is a creature of habit, and I would probably bet on the fact that he's going to have Michael Brantley hit second. It's just what you do. You just go out there, you put your veteran guy, the guy that makes good contact, you go out there and do that. I'm sure Bet Online would say that as well. So betonline.net is your number one source for all sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From pro football to college bowl season to basketball and everything else. We've got it all at betonline.net. What are the Astros' odds of winning World Series? Now that the Mets, we'll talk about this in a second, have Carlos Correa, have their odds gone up to win the World Series? I'm sure betonline.net has that information. So if you love sports podcasts, you can even find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. All right. So, yeah, I really think that Brantley is probably thinking about it since our last podcast. I really think that Dusty Baker is going to end up going with Michael Brantley because that's just what he does. He just goes with the veteran guy. And as much as he fought for Jeremy Pena last year, I think it was because that was the best option that he had available. Michael Brantley was not there, but you have a guy that makes contact, doesn't strike out, can advance Jose Altuve. I just think it makes a lot of sense. And what else makes a lot of sense is the fact that Yuli Gurriel is not really getting a lot of bites on the free agent market.
Right.
And so he decided to go ahead and change agents. And he has switched to Diego Bentz. And he was also the agent who represented Jose Abreu, who signed with the Astros. So basically, I don't know if that's to get back in with the Astros or just to see, hey, let me just see if I can switch things up. I'm not getting any offers here, or I'm not getting offers that I like. Let me see if maybe a change of representation will help. Do you think we'll see Yuli A with the Astros this year? And B, do you think he'll get a full-time job somewhere?
I do not think you'll see Yuli back with the Houston Astros. I don't see it. I think you have too many people that are in the wings that can play a utility role in, namely Hensley or Dubon. Um, I know Yuli came up as a third baseman. He's played some second base, but if you look at his defensive numbers in those utility positions at the age he is more of a liability than a help. If you're bringing him in just to hit or pinch hit and sit on the bench, you're not going to pay him for that. I think he's got too much pride in his game and what he's accomplished to be reduced to that kind of role. So because of that and me not seeing him, and it's not that the Astros don't want him back. It's not that Yuli isn't beloved or Yuli isn't appreciated for what he's given to the city and what he's done for the Houston Astros, because he has contributed in every way, shape, and form to both titles. Even when he slumped during the season, he came through and he had a ton of hits in the postseason. Without some of those hits, Astros they may not win some of those games. I can see Yuli Guriel getting a job somewhere else. It would be an interesting signing, but I think it would be kind of cool to see him play in Toronto with his brother. I've heard Miami as a possibility, but I haven't heard much traction. And I bet you a lot of that traction or lack thereof is because of the agency. And we saw when Carlos Correa first went into free agency, he had some fashion designer Hollywood agency
Right.
and then he dropped them. And now you see what happened. We'll talk about Correa here in a second. But personally, I don't see him back in a Astros uniform. I don't think he fits with the amount of pieces we have. Again, that's not a slight or a knock on Yuli Gurriel. I just see him fitting in other places where he can actually contribute and be more appreciated for what he has left in the tank, because I think he wants 2 years.
And I don't see the Astros going after Michael Conforto at this point. I think that if they do anything, they'll go out and get a veteran catcher, but the catching market is so thin right now. I know Gary Sanchez is out there. That's a name that might be interesting, but his defense is so bad, and he's not
He's
the
a
same.
terrible catcher.
Yeah, he's not the same guy he was with the Yankees. And there's some other guys like Tucker Barnhart and other people we've talked about, but it just I'd rather go with the young guys right now. See what we got. If these are the catchers of your future, try them out. I mean, you've already got a stacked lineup. You don't need to just go out there. I mean, who knows what the Astros are going to need at the trade deadline, and you might as well just save some of that luxury tax space for make an acquisition at trade deadline, because who knows? You may need a starter then. You may need a center fielder. Maybe none of the center fielders pan out. Maybe you'll need a catcher, a legit catcher, not just a backup Tucker Barnhart type situation. If there's a big injury or something like that. So I think the Astros were a little cautious when they could have gone out and landed like Wilson Contreras. They could have gone out and made the trade for Sean Murphy and a couple other guys. But I think that they were like, okay, well, let's see what's out there. We want to maybe possibly upgrade from Maldonado, but if nothing works out, we got Maldonado, and we're not going to throw a whole bunch of money at one player for multiple years and then have buyer's remorse like maybe, possibly the
Mm.
Giants did. And I'm not saying that's the case, but before we go on to the Giants and Correa and the Mets situation, any thoughts on the catching situation?
I really don't. I don't see them doing anything. I don't know, unless the Astros mindset is they want a veteran backup catcher. There's no need to go sign anybody. If Diaz or Lee are your guy and you have confidence in them, then
Right.
why waste the resources? I don't see how signing a Barnhart or someone else makes you better or really helps you out. Gary Sanchez, absolutely not. I mean, he hasn't been good at the plate since his rookie season. His rookie year, amazing
Right.
offensive catcher, terrible behind the plate. He's even changed his stance a few different times behind the plate and still has not gotten better. Look, catching is one of the most difficult positions on the field. There's only one of them, and there's hardly a lot of catchers from year in year out that everybody's wowed by. You
Right.
don't have Buster Posies, Yadier Molinas, Pudge Rodriguez. You don't have those guys
Buster
coming around
Posey
the
is not
ball.
even Buster Posey anymore.
Yeah, no. I mean that's the thing. But look, here's the deal. The Astros stand pat where they are. I like
Right.
what you talk about at the trade deadline. That you go out and you see who's available. You save that money. I mean, hey, I was gonna joke around and say maybe we get Carlos Correa to play center field, but somebody already took the guy.
Yeah. And I mean, I also think that maybe at like closer to spring training, there's a catcher available. You might bring somebody in on a minor league deal, like they did with Eric Kratz, something like that. Just somebody just to kind of offer some competition for the young kids. Say, hey, if you don't perform, we're going to put this veteran guy on the team over you, and something like that, just to kind of give them some motivation and just give them the willpower to go and get. Because one of these guys have got to click basically, because the Astros don't have Jason Castro anymore. They don't have Brian McCann anymore. I mean, that's a long time ago, but they need one of these guys to step up and be the future. I know there's some other catchers in the minor leagues, but these are the guys now. Diaz and Lee are the future now.
Yeah, exactly. And this episode is brought to you by the NHTSA. We want you to be prepared and be aware that this is a holiday season. And did you know that driving high is the same as driving under the influence? That's right. Driving under the influence of marijuana is against the law in every state, even in states where marijuana is legal. That means driving high could get you a DUI. And if you think law enforcement officers can't tell when you're high, you're wrong. Your friends can tell, your coworkers can tell, even your parents can tell. Everyone can tell. So, what makes you think that law enforcement officers don't know when you're driving high? Driving under the influence of marijuana can slow your response time and change how you perceive time and speed. So even if you think you're fine to drive, when you're high, you're not. Because the bottom line is, if you feel different, you drive different. And driving high is driving under the influence. So remember, drive high, get a DUI. This message is paid for by the NHTSA.
All right. So I know that a lot of people went to bed early last night, a little concerned in San Francisco about the canceled or postponed press conference for Carlos Correa. And that typically doesn't really happen. If you schedule a press conference, that means it's a done deal. But most deals are stipulated on a physical. And if a team does not like what they see on the physical, and they can pull the plug at any time. And that's apparently what happened to the Giants. They saw something. We still do not know what it was. Apparently, it did not have to do anything with the back. We don't know for a fact, but the Giants were they said that the Giants were okay with his back. They already did some preliminary reports on the back and said it wasn't that. So there must have been something that got them a little bit concerned. I mean, just think about it. You're the Giants. Is Carlos Correa really the guy that's going to put you over the top? Yes, he's your superstar. Yes, he would have sold a whole bunch of jerseys. And I really hope there's not a lot of Carlos Correa San Francisco Giants jerseys underneath the Christmas trees, because that's going to be very, very depressing for that. But so that deal was voided. And overnight, basically, Steve Cohen jumped in and said, okay, the Giants don't want you. We want you. Come to Papa. And basically, Correa signed a 12-year deal worth $315 million to be the Mets third baseman. Yes, this is less money, and I think more years, but less money. But still, I think that this is a good deal. I think that maybe Verlander said, hey, if Correa comes available, he's a great shortstop. You want him on your team. I know he's going to play third base there, but it's just crazy the amount of money, we'll talk about in a second, that the Mets have spent.
Well, I think maybe the Giants saw that Correa had spindinitis. And basically, what they realized was they were going to spend way too much money on a guy that wasn't going to yield them the things
Buyer's
they wanted.
remorse. Yeah.
Exactly. Or we're going to make up medical terms. We're going to make up, like I said, spendinitis here. They just were like, yeah, I don't know if I want to spend that much money on this guy.
Red
We didn't
flags.
get Rodon back.
Right.
We didn't get Judge. And we're not going to ride a championship into the sunset with Carlos Correa. So the Giants have more issues than just needing a shortstop. They're in a very tough division out west. It's just interesting to me, though, that they would release information about a deal being done and then pull back last minute. And this looks really bad on the Giants. I think it really kind of started to look bad for Correa. And I was wondering, is he going to get less? Is he going to get fewer years? How much less is it going to be? And then what do you know? Steve Cohen, the grand poobah of all spending in baseball, now has put out $816 million in contracts, almost $1 billion in contracts when you total up everybody's contract that he signed, and takes him over the luxury tax hold in an unbelievable gap between him and the second place guy. But like I said in my article a couple weeks ago, success in the offseason doesn't always equal spending, and spending in the offseason doesn't always equal success. The Mets still have to go out there and win it. The Mets still have to go out there and take the championship. The Mets
Right.
won a lot of games last year, and they still didn't win. Will Verlander hold up? What will Correa's year look like? Will he stay injury free? Does he make that transition to third base smoothly? He's a talented player. If he gets in the playoffs, he's a key guy to have at the plate. So naturally, you want to say it makes the Mets better. But I've even seen some people from New York joking the Mets just got worse. And I'm like, I don't know how you make that calculation, but at what point does the spending stop? At what point is too much, Eric? Because if the Mets don't win it, it's a complete failure. It's an abject
Right.
failure in the highest order. This is the highest payroll of all time. They've outspent the Yankees. They've outspent what the Pirates have played every one of their players since 2020. That's
Right.
how much money they're spending.
All right. So the original deal with the Giants was 13 years, $350 million, which would have paid him $26.9 million per season. I don't know how it was structured, if some seasons were going to be paid more than others. But so this one is 1 year less. So it's only 12 years, and it's for about $26.5 million per season. So it's a slight pay cut. And I think that also dealing with, I'm sure both states have state taxes, so I don't think that matters. That factors in
No.
too much. But I just think that Steve Cohen is not afraid to spend. He's outspent in one night what the Pirates have spent in the past 12 years on payroll, basically.
Yeah.
And so I just think that Cohen is just out there for blood. He knows that to beat the Astros, to beat the other teams in the National League, he's going to have to go ahead and just outspend everybody. And will it work? Who knows? How much does Justin Verlander have left? The rotation, it looks good on paper, but how healthy can they be? And the lineup looks good on paper, but how will it produce? And now Correa is being paid more, or has more years and got more money than Lindor did. So now he's finally satisfied that he topped Lindor.
But what is Lindor's AAV though? Isn't Lindor's AAV 30 something million? Like 30?
Lindor signed. Let me see. Lindor signed 341 for 10 years. So I think his AAV is higher. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
So
because Carlos Correa's AAV is only
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
2.6.
But I guess
So
it's for longer years, and I guess it's longer years, but less money. You're right.
yeah,
So
it
because he's
is.
getting $34.1 million per season. You're correct there.
And
I
again,
was just looking at the length. Yeah.
I would love to see I would love to see the tax rate, because the marginal tax rate when he was in California would have gone to the Giants was like 51%. Basically, he was only taking home about 12 million.
Right.
And a majority of those games are in California. So remember, these players are taxed by where they play. So wherever that tax rate is, like when he plays in Texas or plays the Astros in Houston, they don't have a sales tax attached to the money that they
Right.
earn for those games. But if a lot of your games are in New York now, you're on the East Coast, up north, you go West Coast for a few games in National League, that's going to cut into the overall. It's just weird. It had a very, who was it? Drew Brees, whenever he was drafted into the NFL by, I believe it was the Chargers, and oh no, was it no, not Drew Brees. I'm sorry. It was one of the Manning brothers. I believe it was Eli Manning. When Eli Manning was drafted, he was drafted originally by the Chargers, and then
Hmm.
he ended up going to the Giants, and his dad's like, my son's not going to play for that crappy team, and he went to the New York Giants. It had this weird like twist of fate kind of feel. Like everybody's like, what's going on? What's wrong with Carlos Correa? And then they're like, oh, it's not his back. It's, oh man, we feel sick all of a sudden because we're spending way too much money on a guy. Sorry, bud, we didn't sign anything. You're out. But I wonder if they actually did print those jerseys, because if it wasn't made official, maybe the club hadn't yet printed those Carlos Correa Giants jerseys.
I don't think I don't think that they made official ones, but fans can go out there and make the personalized jerseys. So I'm sure some
And
fans
we're like,
went out there.
yes, Carlos is our guy.
Yeah. So some people were trying to get ahead of the game and go out there and print the number. I don't know what number he was going to be with them, but let's just assume it was the number one jersey with crayon there, and so they're going to be stuck with. But at the same time, they wouldn't know what number, because I don't think it was officially announced what number he would have. So if people are that overzealous, then that's on them for just doing that.
100%.
Yeah. So I know that it's still early in the process. You have not Mr. the Tibbs, who is following the Hall of Fame votes.
Right.
But Billy Wagner is at 69.2% of the known votes through 35 of the public ballots. Okay, so he did lose one from last year. So he did drop a vote from last year, but he's still close enough to where I think that if more people continue to vote for him, there's a possibility he gets in the Hall of Fame. If you look at everybody else, Scott Rowland, I know it's still early. He's at 79.5%. Andrew Jones, he's at 61.5%. Todd Helton's at 79.5%. But this is only through like 35 ballots. We know that it's things are going to change, but at least we see Billy Wagner trending upwards, and maybe
Yeah.
he can make that little jump.
I would love for him to make that jump. Billy
Yeah,
Wagner, I think, absolutely deserves it. What infuriates me, though, are these writers that have the ability to vote for up to 12, I believe, on a ballot, and they vote for one person. And
yeah.
I'm like, look, it does say you can vote for up to. It's not required that you use all your votes. And obviously, if there's a field of 10 and there's only one worthy, that makes sense. But to see Billy Wagner
It's
not
only
getting
10.
votes. Oh, it is only 10. Okay, I
Yeah,
wasn't sure if it was 10 or 12. Obviously, I don't have a vote, so I don't know the exact number. But yeah, but even if you have 10 votes and you have one and you use one, to me, that's like a gross mismanagement of your votes, and maybe pass it on because there's more than 10 people on this ballot. There are several people I think that deserve a nod. But what I love is Billy Wagner is on the cusp of becoming a Hall of Famer. His son, Will Wagner, is a rising star in the Astros organization and could be a superstar one day with the Houston Astros or somewhere else. And so Billy Wagner, I think, is a part of Astros folklore, is a part of the great teams from the early 2000s. And you would like to see him get that respect because he really was one of the best in the game. And again, to mention his son, I think it's really neat that we have his son in our farm system. And hopefully throughout the year, we can talk about him moving up in the ranks as he gets closer and closer to Minute Maid Park.
right. So definitely awesome to see Michael Brantley back. Where he bats is really going to depend on what Dusty Baker feels is best for the lineup. Because at the end of the day, you and I can argue too. Well, we run out of breath, but it's really up to Dusty Baker. I mean, we'll probably still continue conversation. Pena would be better, kind of nestled in between the big bats to see better pitches. But I think Michael Brantley is better suited there. So we'll see what happens down the road. But guys, that's all we got for this edition of the Locked On Astros podcast. And if you don't listen to, we're probably going to do one more for Christmas, but if you don't listen to another podcast this week, have a happy holidays. And no matter what you believe in, just go ahead and have a happy holiday, spend some time with your family, and just have some relaxing, fun times. And just make sure you just enjoy yourself and just know that the baseball season is around the corner. Once New Year's hits, that's a countdown to spring training and some more baseball and the Astros trek to the next World Series title. And make sure you go ahead and check us out on sorry, I can't think right now, on YouTube. Make sure you go and subscribe to us and go ahead and check us out. We are your daily Astros podcast. My name is Eric Huysman. You can find me on Twitter at Eric Talk Stros, and you can find Brett at H Town Wheelhouse. We are the Locked On Astros podcast, and go Stros.